we're going to begin with the story and trial that you've been watching all day long here on your front row seat to justice, the impeachment trial, second impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. And today really was the day where the prosecutors / House managers were kind of wrapping up their case. And it was the lead impeachment manager, Jamie Raskin, who took the lead.
And then you get to Article 2, the president, 4 short paragraphs. And the 4th paragraph is all about what? Impeachment. How you get rid of a president who commits high crimes and misdemeanors. But what's the core job of the president? To take care that the laws are faithfully executed. And our framers were so fearful of presidents becoming tyrants and wanting to become kings and despots that they put the oath of office right into the Constitution. They inscribed it into the Constitution to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. 1, why did President Trump not tell his supporters to stop the attack on the Capitol as soon as he learned of it? Why did President Trump do nothing to stop the attack for at least 2 hours after the attack began? As our constitutional commander-in-chief, why did he do nothing to send help to our overwhelmed and besieged law enforcement officers for at least 2 hours on January 16th after the attack began? On January 6th, why did President Trump not at any point that day condemn the violent insurrection and the insurrectionists? And I'll add a legal question that I hope his distinguished counsel will address. If a president did invite a violent insurrection against our government, as of course we allege and think we've proven in this case, but just in general, if a president incited a violent insurrection against our government, would that be a high crime and misdemeanor? Can we all agree at least on that?
All right, let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who has been following this for us today. Chanley, so where exactly are we? And if you can, try to make it a bit of an analogy to a criminal trial like we normally cover here, so we have a point of reference as to where we are in this impeachment trial.
Sure, great point. So basically the prosecutors, the House managers here, have wrapped up their case in chief, if you will, that we would normally see before the defense has a chance to put on evidence. So that's where we are right now. The prosecution, the House managers had up to 16 hours they could use yesterday and today. They didn't go the full day today. They ended a little bit early, but with some powerful arguments over the last 2 days for their case. Now tomorrow is when Trump's lawyers will mount his defense. They likewise have up to 16 hours over the course of 2 different days to put on their general arguments and evidence before the senators, who are the jurors, the judges in this impeachment trial. So we're expecting tomorrow, though, not to be quite as long, because Trump's lawyers are telling media today that they don't plan to go the full 16 hours, Vinnie. So the defense, while they will put on a case like a normal trial, it will be truncated. It will be pretty straight to the point is what they're saying. They won't use all of their time. So what we've seen is their evidence, but it's kind of like an argument and it's evidence kind of all wrapped into one. I mean, is there any chance that a witness might testify, like someone go under oath and testify about what they saw, what they heard? There is that possibility. You know, today was interesting to watch, Vinnie, because they showed some video, media reports of senators who at the time on January 6th or after January 6th were giving their personal stories. So it was almost like calling witnesses today without actually calling witnesses. It was just part of their evidence that they presented before everyone. They also showed a lot of video, social media posts of the rioters, what they had to say while the alleged insurrection was happening, after it. So we heard some testimony throughout, but like you said, there wasn't anyone called and sworn under oath. But there is the possibility for that. So after the defense wraps up its case, which could be over the next couple of days, the next step in the process is for the senators themselves to have that opportunity to ask questions of the legal teams of both sides. That can last up to 4 hours. After that step is complete, then, Vinnie, the House managers, if they so choose, can move to call witnesses and they have a little gateway vote where they then vote by majority if they're going to allow that. But that will slow the process down quite a bit because there is a right to discovery in an impeachment trial. So they can depose all the witnesses they want to call, and then we would actually hear someone come and be sworn in and give testimony if that step is achieved.
All right, so a lot of differences, once again, pointing out witnesses may or may not testify, and it's after they put in basically their case in chief. They have people sort of testify with recorded statements, which is, you can't do that in a regular trial because you have a constitutional right to confront the witnesses against you, to cross-examine them, but that didn't happen. Interesting. So something else that we've seen throughout are some of these clips that have been shown by the House managers. That happened again today. Jamie Raskin showing some of Donald Trump's prior statements. So I guess this would be analogous to prior bad act or propensity. Let's take a look.
Right now, I'm going to play for you just a few clips from over the years when the president's words successfully incited his supporters into assaulting his opponents.
See, the first group, I was nice. Oh, take your time. The second group, I was pretty nice. The third group, I'll be a little more violent. And the fourth group, I'll say, get the hell out of here. All right, yeah, get him the hell out of here, will you, please? Get him out of here. Throw him out. I got a little notice, in case you see, the security guys, we have wonderful security guys. They said, Mr. Trump, there may be somebody with tomatoes in the audience. So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise.
Well, we've seen these clips and many, many more like them before, but think about the brutal power and effectiveness of his words with his followers. You heard him. He told his supporters to be a little more violent, and they responded to his command by literally dragging a protester across the floor at one of his campaign rallies. He cried, "Get him the hell out of here, throw him out." His supporters punched and kicked another protester as he was escorted from the hall. He told supporters to knock the hell out of people who opposed him and promised to pay the legal fees of the assailants.
All right, but Chanley, let's get back to the words, right? Because this is ultimately, for the most part, about incitement, and we've heard the arguments about incitement from Jamie Raskin. We just played the clip of it. So again, did they point to today any specific words of the president telling people to storm the Capitol, telling people to break windows, telling people to harm anyone, telling people to take over the Capitol?
There was no pointing to specific words from January the 6th. They did point to the specific words of the rioters as saying, "We're here for Trump. Trump wants us here. Fight for Trump. He invited us here." Those were the words that they really were pointing to, which were not from President Trump. Now, interesting, like we just played, they go back to 2015 to show this pattern, or like you said, propensity evidence that he stoked or incited violent reaction in his rallies or speeches in the past. He should have known that this sort of language could have led to this, and they harped on foreseeable, that this was a foreseeable risk, a foreseeable harm that he should have known, and they say by his action or inaction, he intended this to happen January 6th.
Interesting, because now we're, different types of legal standards, foreseeability, should have known. And I get back to the Supreme Court decision, which is directing people to do something, which is ultimately what incitement is. And if you don't fulfill that requirement, then the Supreme Court has said your speech is constitutionally protected. you need to direct people to incite and produce the imminent lawless action. So you've got lawless action, that's obvious. You've got it's imminent because it's happening after the speech or before the speech, during the speech also. But do you have the direction from the president? And that's the element that I just don't see. So I guess the question will be whether or not the Senate will use any sort of Supreme Court guidance or legal standards in making their determinations.
You know, you bring up a great point because during the arguments today, we see the House impeachment managers almost trying to preempt that argument that you just said, that the defense will present tomorrow, the direction, the explicit direction that the Supreme Court Brandenburg standard requires for protection of free speech. And today we heard Representative Raskin saying that, look, Brandenburg standard doesn't apply at all. He said this isn't a criminal case. All the free speech argument is just, quote, a distraction from what is really at hand here. So we could see them sort of preempting some of those arguments moving forward and saying, look, the First Amendment doesn't protect the commander-in-chief. He has to be held to a different standard because he, quote, was insider-in-chief on January 6th.
That's fascinating, and that's an interesting argument. It'd be interesting to see what the response is if you're saying this is not a criminal trial, but you have to find him guilty of a crime. So right. To be guilty of a crime, according to the Supreme Court, as a result of what you say, political speech or any other type of speech, it comes back to the Brandenburg test. So it's kind of like a circular argument, but interesting nonetheless. You did mention talking about what the actual rioters were saying and people who stormed the Capitol. Let's take a look at what they did say, because that's an interesting part of this, because that's, you know, the person who is hearing it, what are they hearing? Let's take a look.
The insurrectionists made clear to law enforcement that they were just following President Trump's orders. They didn't shy away from their crimes because they thought they were following orders from the commander-in-chief, and so they would not be punished. They were wrong. After the attack, there were dozens of arrests. These were federal offenses, including assaulting the police. When law enforcement interviewed the people who were at the Capitol on January 6th, they once again said it was because the president told them to be there. Robert Sanford was...
Personally, I do not feel a sense of shame or guilt from my heart from what I was doing. I thought I was following my president. I thought I was following what we were called to do. He asked us to fly there. He asked us to be there. So I was doing what he asked us to do. Ultimately, yes, we were going in solidarity with President Trump. President Trump requested that we be in D.C. on the 6th. So this was our way of going and stopping this deal.
If it comes down to war, guess what? I'm going to be there.
We're all going to be up here and we're going to be breaking those windows.
So, I mean, that's powerful stuff, right? Because these are the people who actually went into the Capitol and breached the Capitol and talking about we're following orders. So I guess that's the best evidence that they have that they were directed to do it, because the people who did it, at least some of the people who did it, are saying they did it because they were directed to do it.
Absolutely. The best piece of evidence they have, because like we said, I think it's going to be a little difficult to get it explicitly from Trump's speech and his words. So they're using, it's almost like circumstantial evidence, right, to prove going through what the rioters understood and what they did moving forward. And we can expect the defense tomorrow to counter that by saying, look, he didn't intend this, and he's going to move the blame to the rioters, because that's the evidence they have. It's them, and they're the ones that did this. President Trump was not the one inciting anything.
All right. Chanley Painter making some sense of what happened today down in Washington. Not easy to do, Chanley. Not easy to do. Thanks.